Hello everyone and welcome back to Sonic Adventure 2 stage tutorials. Today, I'm going to be taking a quick look at Green Forest, and this is going to be a beginner's tutorial. So this is just going to be looking at the stage in very basic terms, like showing you the basic route, some of the more important things to remember about running this stage in general. With a beginner's route, getting through it fairly cleanly in one piece, I think you can be looking at a 2-minute time in this stage without too much difficulty. I may be a little off in my estimation, but we'll just see how it goes. So right off the bat, even as a beginner, there is something very important to take note of at the start of Green Forest. You start on this slope here, and the temptation is just to hold up when you start the stage, and of course to do a spin dash down the slope, because that's faster. But this actually gives you quite a bit harder time at the start of the stage, because if I just hold up and perform a spin dash here, you can see, well, for one thing, the camera wasn't very friendly there somehow, but I didn't have a particularly straight path going down this section. That generally doesn't happen when you hold up here. What you instead want to do is, if you look at the input cam, I'm using no directional input, and I'm just going to charge the spin dash and let it go. If you have neutral stick, you'll get a straight path right down here. This is like the fastest you can take this section, it's the safest you can take this section. So never use directional input on this starting slope. It's just not worth it. Once you're off the speed pad though, then you can start moving. And you have a choice of using either the top path on the left, like up here, or the bottom path to the right. The bottom path is faster, so opt for that. And it's a fairly simple route, just going through here. There's one enemy you need to take care of as you reach it, but it's fine. Light dashing onto this vine is generally pretty easy to do. And all the enemies here, as long as you're moving quickly and as long as you're not in the dead middle, then they generally won't really bother you. For the most part, the start of Green Forest is like holding a lot of up and not too much else, honestly, like at a very basic level at least. So there's a few enemies that drop down here that are just going to drop down like a triangular shape. There's going to be like one guy here, and one guy here. So you generally just want to try and take this sort of route towards the speed pads if you can, to hopefully not contact any enemies. Okay, I was a little off in where they drop, but still, basic idea. The basic route is correct at any rate. So after getting out of here, light dashing this trail is just faster, it gives you a very straight path, so no real reason not to do it. You can like spin dash down this long slope if you like. Just make sure you don't angle too far to the left on the control stick here, otherwise you'll fall off this section quite easily. So again, if you're going to spin dash down here, you want to like use some up left once you reach the corner here, but not too much up left. Like you want to have more up than left in this spot. If possible, you want to hit the top spring rather than the middle spring or the bottom spring, but it's absolutely not worth stressing over as a beginner, so just try and hit the springs in one piece, because if you try and angle too much towards the top spring, it's very easy to come off here and just miss them all entirely. So don't worry too much about that. Once you get off here, there's a couple of enemies to get, and then just run through this loop as normal. And then this tree ascent really speaks for itself. You just want to take the springs up, just keep landing on the springs, and you'll get up here in fairly quick fashion. There is something fairly important to note with this enemy here though. It's fairly quick to get through this section by just jumping once you land here, homing attacking this enemy, and homing attacking onto the spring. Something that you should be aware of, like even as a beginner, is that if possible, the homing attack really doesn't like to aim upwards. If a homing attack target is above Sonic, he will either really struggle to target it or he won't target it at all. So I'm going to like jump partway towards this beetle and homing attack while I'm underneath it, and Sonic is probably not going to target it. You can see there. The homing attack just didn't go for the beetle. Again, like, if you're not at least level with the beetle or above it, Sonic just won't go for it. So just make sure you get a nice big jump, then homing attack for the beetle, you'll get it without too much problem. Same thing with this beetle here, make sure you're high enough, and for that spring as well, before you target them. This checkpoint is very conveniently placed. And this section is just absolutely free. There are inputs you can use here, like holding the B button or the A button, but just don't use anything, because then you'll bounce off that balloon, which is slightly faster. And we can just keep going on as normal. And like a lot of the rest of the stage, just keep holding up here. Once you get out of this loop, though, you don't want to hold too much up. Because if I continue to hold straight up here, as I get out of this loop, then Sonic is going to suddenly veer to the right as the camera changes a little bit. It's not too pronounced when you don't have very much speed, so that's like safe enough to do if you didn't spin dash previously. But if you do spin dash down here to get a lot of speed and go through this loop, and you continue to hold up here, this is going to straight up kill you, and this is going to show you why. See how you veer off there? If you're not prepared for that happening when you have a lot of speed and you're holding straight up, then you're just going to fly straight off to the side. So if you're not going to be spin dashing to skip this loop, and you're spin dashing to go through the loop, then do be aware that as you get out of the loop, you're going to need to angle more to the left like this. I mean, I was angling left and I still veered off to the right there. Like, it's surprisingly pronounced how strong that effect is. Let's go really, really far left. And still, like, barely making it. Like, that is something that is just going to happen a lot. As for as soon as you land around here, there is actually a rail on the left side here, which you can just go very strongly to the left and get on the rail for free. And this light dash trail here has very, very wonky detection because the rings are raised off the floor a little too far. So if you want, you can like jump towards the ring trail to make it a little easier to hit them. Now there's a few ways that you can tackle this section here as the platforms are falling. The fastest way is to, as soon as you land, just go straight along here and homing attack into this spring. But depending on what happens like when you land here, you're not necessarily going to be fast enough to get that. But even assuming worst case scenario, assuming for some reason you end up wasting a lot of time around here, and these end up coming all the way down. These are only going to go so far down, and then from there, you can still fairly easily... Come on, game. Thank you. Yeah. So the reason I wasn't making it up here, this is also kind of important to note, is you can see that I'm angling, I'm holding towards where I'm trying to go, and the corners can generally quite easily block your momentum for some reason, as you can see. Like, the wall can slow down your momentum. So the safer way to do this is just to have no stick input, do a full jump, and then angle towards where you're going to be. Like, it sounds a little awkward, but there are a surprising amount of areas in this game where walls can cut your momentum like that, especially boxes. Like, if you're trying to jump on top of a set of boxes that are stacked on top of each other, then that will 100% happen. That the top box, you'll like hit the bottom corner of it and it will completely stop your upward momentum if you're angling towards it. But if you neutral, then you'll get up without much problem. You can just get the spring, and you're reaching the goal ring. So let's try and bring this all together in just one attempt. And as I say, I'm estimating that we're going to be looking at like around about a 2-minute time. Like, I may be off, but we'll see what happens. So, no input, just do a spin dash and let it go on this first slope. You can light dash here if you want, it's pretty swift. If the enemy gets in your way, it's not too much bother. There are, of course, loop skips you can do here, but those are tricky. So, if you want to keep it super basic, just nothing wrong with going through the loop as normal like this. That light dash is fairly helpful to get. You can do both beetles here if you're a little scared about how that's going to go. So the ascent, super simple as long as you're just remembering to land on all the springs. Make sure you're high enough to hit this beetle. And the same again with this beetle on the spring, just make sure you're high enough to hit them. A fair bit of time is wasted by not using the bungee skip here, but as a beginner the bungee skip is very easy to make a mistake on, so it's not a like super high priority. It's very easy to lose speed on springs and rails. Rails, not springs and rails, just rails in general. So if possible, grab this spring like I said. And yeah, coming out like around about in the 2-minute region. I had like some pretty obvious time losses going through the stage from getting my momentum stopped. So even just using very basic routes, you are looking at getting around about a 2-minute time, as long as you don't slow down too much. So that is a beginner's introduction to Green Forest. Any particular questions that you want to ask, just feel free to leave any comments, or just get me on Discord directly. I'm always more than happy to help people out with any questions they've got and helping people learn this game. So that is Green Forest, and I will see you guys later.